Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Bycatch by Alexander Blevens, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Biloxi, Mississippi, August 16, 1993. Wooden blades slapped the dark, still water, pulling a flat-bottomed skiff across the Biloxi Bay. Jake crouched low at the bow and trained his eyes on a single white light ahead. His younger brother Pigeon worked the oars. Both were in their early 20s, lean and muscular. A lone black skimmer glided over the water, beating its wings past the boat through the summer's thick, humid air. No moon or stars filled the midnight sky, just as the brothers had hoped. They had a task to do, a score to settle. At the far end of the bay, 600 yards off Deer Island, a trawler rested at anchor. From its boom, a bright halogen beam lit up huge nets hanging from outriggers on either side of the vessel. With 42 feet at the waterline, she had the classic graceful lines of a Gulf Coast shrimper. Across the transom and bow, the name Miss On arched in newly gilded letters. Her gold name board, green pilot house, and a red hull presented a semblance of Christmas. Jake felt the gentle vibration of an electric generator as he grabbed the trawler's anchor line to steady the skiff. Without a sound, Pigeon stowed the oars and pulled on heavy knit gloves. He dragged a canvas sack from beneath his seat and gave it to Jake. Sweat beaded on Pigeon's brow and ran into the corners of his eyes. He eased himself over the skiff's gunwale and into the warm bay. Jake pulled a length of cable looped at each end out of the sack. Holding on to one end of the coil, he handed the remainder over the side. For a moment, the heavy wire dragged Pigeon's head underwater. "Give me that float," Pigeon mouthed as he struggled at the surface. Jake tossed a square white seat cushion to his brother. Pigeon trapped the pad under his arm, then played out the cable with one hand as he sidekicked along the hull of the Miss On. At the stern, he grabbed a tire bumper hanging from the back rail to rest a moment. Looking up to the transom and the new golden letters, he mumbled, "Those bastards." Then he took a deep breath, released the cushion, and sank into the inky water. The brothers had been raised on the Mississippi Gulf Coast since they were teenagers and had spent most of their days helping their father run this same boat. They knew every cleat and line, every block and winch, and every seam of its wooden hull. The free end of the cable pulled on Pigeon's arm as he made his way by memory and feel down 6 feet to the propeller. In the darkness, he guided the wire loop around the prop shaft and over one of the brass blades. Pigeon jerked twice on the cable to signal Jake that his job was complete. Jake secured the other end of the cable to the 2-inch line leading to the trawler's anchor, 15 feet below and fast in the muddy bottom of the bay. He then let his end of the cable slide down the rope and under the surface. The cable now hung beneath the Miss On from anchor line to propeller. Moments later, Pigeon popped up on the far side of the skiff with a loud gasp for air. His wet blonde hair draped over his face. Breathless, he grabbed the rail with both hands. "Damn it, get in!" Jake whispered as he scrambled to help Pigeon climb into the small boat. "Get in!" Pigeon put his foot on the lower end of the outboard motor and flipped over the stern, landing shoulder first at the bottom of the boat. "Shit," he hissed, then squirmed onto the stern thwart. Jake set the oars, spun the skiff, and pulled away from the trawler with jerking strokes. Darkness filled the quickly expanding space between trawler and skiff. When they were out of earshot, Pigeon fired up the outboard, handled the tiller, and motored toward the point, toward the mainland shore, where casino lights cast brilliant purple, green, and yellow streaks across the smooth water. The skiff drew a V-shaped wake as it skimmed under the highway drawbridge and around Point Cadet. The brothers followed the channel markers, red and green, into Back Bay. They passed boatyards and dry docks filled with schooners, catboats, prams, and cabin cruisers, aging warehouses left dilapidated after long-forgotten storms, colorful shrimp boats tied up to docks with their outriggers pointing to the night sky, and shrimp packing plants with darkened windows and empty lots. On the point, behind the wharves, plants, and boatyards, was a tidy neighborhood of small clapboard houses arranged in blocks going north, south, east, and west. For 3 centuries, successive waves of immigrant fishermen and their families, the Spanish, the French, the Yugoslavs, and the Vietnamese, occupied this low-lying spit of land between the bays. The brothers glided by bulkheads, protecting the broad lawns of stately homes and private docks jutting out into the shallow water. 6-inch round styrofoam balls floating on the surface and painted in colorful patterns to claim the crab traps below slipped by. Further up the channel, where Back Bay narrowed, a thick strip of saltgrass abutted the dark pine forest at the water's edge, obscuring the transition from land to sea. Thin cross-cut canals in the dull marsh, leading to shacks hidden in the woods, flashed with reflected lights as the boat passed. Hours before daybreak, before the release of the coast's nighttime slumber and stillness, Pigeon ran the skiff through a narrow cut in the salt grass and onto the muddy bank of an old fishing camp their father used to rent. On impact, Jake lurched forward in the boat. It wasn't right, he thought. Then he pulled a slight smile over his face as he reconciled with what was to become of the Miss On in just a few hours.